Historical Celebrities of Dis. Dis Museum has commemorated several of the historical celebrities associated with the town. John Skelton, Thomas Paine, Thomas Manning, John Betjeman. John Skelton came to be rector in 1504. He's thought to be from the north of England and came down to university. He did very well and was made poet-laureate by the universities of Oxford, Cambridge and Louvain in Belgium. This was a kind of degree in rhetoric rather than the national title it now is. He took holy orders and became tutor to the royal children at the court of Henry VII, including the lad who would become Henry VIII. For some reason, probably for opening his mouth too much, he lost his job. In 1502 he was in prison. By 1504 he was rector of Dis. This must have been a blow to his ego, but he threw himself into the life of a country priest and also wrote some of his best poetry. For the soul of Philip Sparrow that was late slain at Carrow. One of his best-known poems was Philip Sparrow, the pet of Jane Scrope. The bird fell victim to Gib the cat and was eulogized by Skelton. You might think that Jane was a young girl, but she was a young woman and comely. While Skelton could not in reality have cared less about the sparrow, he was much taken with Jane. Coleridge called it an exquisite and original poem. The throng of birds attending the obsequies are like those in Who Killed Cock Robin. They include birds like storks and others that must have nested around Dis Mere at the time. Although he was a Catholic priest, Skelton was a great lover of women and wrote poems about them, often about their unfaithfulness. He also wrote religious poems, pieces about the evils of the day, the passing of time, his own genius, and criticisms of Cardinal Wolsey. This was not clever, as heads rolled for less. Ware the Hawk describes the time he found a neighbouring clergyman hawking in the church. For sure he wrought amiss to hawk in my church of Dis. Our events included a Tudor banquet. Here you see Henry VIII and Queen Catherine. A Tudor fair on the Fair Green, attended by 3,000 people. And a column in a local magazine. Also a production of Skelton's play, Magnificence. Thomas Paine is usually associated with Thetford, his birthplace, but he worked as a staymaker in Dis for about a year in 1765-66. So the three best-selling works of the 18th century were written by a Dis workman: Common Sense, Rights of Man, and The Age of Reason. Paine worked for Gudgeon the Staymaker in Cock Street. This is where Paine worked, Beehive Yard, Cock Street, later Denmark Street, for Gudgeon the Staymaker. Benjamin Franklin, whom Paine met in London, encouraged him to go to America. Without his influence, America could still be ruled by Charles III. The country could still be called Virginia. He coined the term United States of America. Slavery could still be practiced, and women would not have equal rights. He campaigned against both of those things. Over here, we would not have the welfare state, benefits, education funding, or pensions. In his lifetime, he was burned in effigy, charged with seditious libel, hated by the establishment, and narrowly missed the guillotine. As recently as 1982, a Daily Telegraph editorial referred to him as an agent of destruction. He would play a prominent part in both the American and French revolutions. Playwright Trevor Griffiths with a plaque commemorating Paine in Beehive Yard. Remember Tom Paine, 1737 to 1809, author of The Rights of Man, who lived and worked in Beehive Yard. My country is the world, and my religion is to do good. We planted the Liberty Tree to kick off the commemoration for Paine on his bicentenary. We performed street theatre to entertain the world press visitors. Period reenactors drilled in the marketplace. Thomas Manning was the first European to reach Lhasa and meet the Dalai Lama. The Mannings were rectors of Dis for 138 years, from the time of the American War of Independence to the First World War. Of the four Manning rectors, Thomas was the son of the first Manning rector and the brother of the second. He had a passion for China and wanted to learn its language, customs, and manners. Nowhere in England could he learn the veiled mysteries of the language, so he had to go to Paris. There, in a moment of synchronicity for Dis history, he found himself in the same room as Thomas Paine, although they never conversed. Manning would spend a couple of years in Canton with the East India Company, but was constantly thwarted in his desire to reach Peking. He sailed to India with the same results. Finally, he set off across the Himalayas with just a manservant. Reaching Lhasa, he became the first European to meet the boy Dalai Lama. 200 years later, Dis Museum reenacted the meeting with the Dalai Lama, and Manning's great-great-nephew left. A painting and bust of Thomas Manning loaned to us by the Royal Asiatic Society. In 1963, John Betjeman came to Dis, said to be his favourite Norfolk town, to make one of his films. For his centenary in 2016, we remade the film, containing some before and after footage and new material, including interviews with people involved with the original. His film was called Something About Dis, so we called ours Something Else About Dis. The film proved to be a powerful piece of anti-overspill propaganda. Thetford had just accepted the scheme and had been almost overwhelmed, with a crime rate that soon rivaled that of London. Betjeman spoke against it happening in Dis. It was a close-run thing, with the town only escaping it by a chairman's casting vote. When asked in later years if someone had put Betjeman up to making the film for that purpose, director Malcolm Freegard insisted that he just liked Dis, although there is no record of him having visited it before. These have been some of the famous people associated with Dis. We have also commemorated the start of World War I. This included an appearance by a well-known actor. Hairflick actor Richard Gibson read the World War I story The Bowmen. We also put the missing names on the War Memorial from World War I. The museum supports the annual town carnival. And we take any chance to promote the museum. This railway sign came in, so we got someone to come from the railway station with one of the old green flags. We dressed up as station masters and got the picture in the press. We have stalls at fetes, fairs and rallies. This commemorative ale at the annual Burston Rally regularly brings in £400. Celebrity guests include Ian Lavender from Dad's Army and rock legend Rick Wakeman. Dis Men at the Somme, a talk, a film with music on the centenary of the battle. Tristram Carey, composer of electronic music, was commemorated with an exhibition and a concert. The Churchill lookalikes appeared a number of times. Down by the riverside celebrated the local river. The couple here are reading from Dickens' Our Mutual Friend, a river novel. We commemorated Dis girl Ethel Leneve's part in the Crippen trial of 1910 on its anniversary. We commemorated the centenary of the R-34 airship's double Atlantic crossing and return to nearby Fulham. Here, General Maitland of the R-34 stands proudly beside a blimp commemorating that great feat of the double crossing of the Atlantic. This was a specially composed musical show in honour of R-34, written by a local composer and sung by local people. We recreated an Edwardian royal visit with King Edward VII and Queen Alexandra. The old picture house was commemorated on the 50th anniversary of its closure, and look at the wonderful press coverage we got. This year we commemorated the history of politics in the election year, including speeches by the actual candidates. Our ghost walks are highly popular and could sell out 3 times over. We also have interesting things in glass cases, but believe that a museum should be much more than that. The museum projects have twice won the East of England Market Towns Culture Award and a Museums and Heritage Award for Excellence, while 5 museum members have been made honorary citizens. And congratulations to the winners.